right, for those of you who are just joining in now, welcome to our webinar about the new Campus ESP SMS module and how institutions can leverage SMS to engage parents and improve student outcomes. What do you think, Mel? Should we just go ahead and get started?
Yeah, I think we're at a pretty decent number. It's kind of evening out, and anybody who comes in late, we can catch them up or they'll have the recording. So I think we're good to get started.
All right, I'll kick us off then. So just a couple housekeeping items. I know all of this, nothing here is new after 3 years of Zoom time, but of course, the lines are on mute. Please use the chat feature to ask questions. We'd love to take questions throughout the session to make it more engaging. We don't need to wait until the end. And then at the end of this webinar, the recording and the slide deck will go out. So feel free to take notes if you'd like, but you don't have to worry about jotting down too much information. The agenda for today, we're going to start with some introductions, a little bit of information about Campus ESP, because I know there's some folks on the attendee list who are not current Campus ESP users. We're going to talk about the early results from texting families at Salisbury and Pacific, as well as some use cases, what families want us to text them about. We'll do a brief demo of the new Campus ESP SMS module, which was just released about 2 weeks ago, best practices, and then we'll have time at the end for questions. But again, please use the chat feature throughout to ask questions, and we will be monitoring it. So starting with some quick introductions, I'll go first. My name is Brooke Sternick. I'm the Director of Product at Campus ESP, and I've been working on developing our new SMS module and bringing it to market. So I should be able to answer any questions about how it works and what's coming up next on the roadmap regarding SMS. We are also doing quick fun facts from each of the panelists. Of course, I suggested this idea and then didn't think too much about it, but my fun fact is that I was the first hire at Campus ESP almost 5 years ago, and it's been quite the journey from where we started when I would sit across the table in our co-working space with our CEO, Dave, every day. And I'm joined by two of our fabulous customers and Campus ESP power users. Joe and Mary Beth were both members of our SMS beta group. So even though we formally announced SMS 2 weeks ago, Joe and Mary Beth have been using the SMS module for about 2 months now and have a lot to share with the group. I will pass it to you, Joe.
Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. As Brooke said, I'm Joe Benish, and I serve as the Director of Orientation, Transitions, and Family Programs at Salisbury University, which is located on the eastern shore of Maryland. We've had Campus ESP, Brooke and I were just talking about this, for probably about 4.5 years here at Salisbury. We have our current users for our prospective families, our current families. We are about to enter into the FERPA module, and we are doing the beta grouping for SMS. So we are pretty active users on there. We have some good data, and overall, we're glad to be here and hope that we can help answer any questions you all have.
Thanks, Joe. Mary Beth.
Hey everyone, Mary Beth Marks. You may have seen me on previous Campus ESP webinars. I'm an OG Campus ESP partner. I started with them at my previous institution, the University of New Orleans. Brooke did my implementation. She's been stuck with me ever since, but I think it's been a good ride so far. I recently transitioned to the Executive Director for Strategic Enrollment Marketing at the University of the Pacific, located here in sunny Northern California. We use, in both of my locations, I am primarily a user of Campus ESP to recruit students. And the way that I do that is by recruiting their parents. And you will learn more about that through our webinar today. My fun fact is that for the second time in my life, I am going to the New Kids on the Block concert tonight. Team Joey. So if anybody wants to debate after the webinar, feel free to hit me up. We can talk about which kid we like the best. And the funnier fact about this, and I'm not ashamed to say this, is that this is the second time that I've gone. My first time was in 2019. So if that tells you anything, diehard fan, I can't help it. And then, yeah, that's it. Oh, I also wanted to just do my own selfish plug. Follow me on LinkedIn. I got I'm a creator on LinkedIn now. I'm doing their beta testing on the creator side of LinkedIn, and I have some pretty good content scheduled for this summer, like how to make a vendor a partner instead of just a vendor, talking about ways and questions that you can ask your vendor partners about your digital campaigns and other platforms to get the most out of their performance. So please go follow me, Mary Beth Marks, on LinkedIn.
Thanks, Mary Beth. I can validate. We love Mary Beth's LinkedIn presence. So great group today. Between Joe and Mary Beth, we have representation from student affairs, enrollment, public institution, private institution, East Coast, West Coast. So hopefully there's something for everyone on this call. Very brief campus ESP overview for some of the new folks, the new names I see on the attendee list. Campus ESP is one-stop shop for parent engagement. We offer a web and mobile platform, email, and now SMS engagement to really help you leverage families to support enrollment and student success. We now work with over 210 colleges and 3 million families. And as Mary Beth mentioned, Joe and Mary Beth are both Campus ESP OGs to two of our first 20 institutions we've partnered with. But today, talking about SMS engagement, our work really begins with the research on parent communication and parent communication expectations. So this stat you see here comes from an annual study that Campus ESP co-sponsors with RNL. And the results from 2022 show that 85% of parents expect communication from your institution at least weekly, which is a number that we have seen grow over the years. And then drilling into the data of how parents would like to be engaged weekly, email is still best for this generation of families, but we do see SMS and portal engagement as a growing communication preference. And thinking about how you can synchronize parent communication for different types of parents across different platforms, Campus ESP really offers engagement in all of these areas. But what I think personally is most interesting about this data, when we drill into communication preferences by demographics, what we find is that actually Black, Hispanic, first generation, low income families have a much higher preference for text messaging. So we know that many institutions are focused on these demographics, and this research shows us that this is the best way to reach these families. So just a lot of talking for me. I'll pause here with a question for Mary Beth and for Joe. Of course, many campuses are focused on these demographics, but aside from communication with these groups, just generally, what other goals are you trying to accomplish, or what problems are you trying to solve that you think SMS communication can help with? So maybe Mary Beth, we can start with you to talk about the enrollment perspective.
So Brooke and I, a couple months ago, were looking at our performance data in Campus ESP in the portal, which has a really good, some good stats that you can take a look at to see how effective your messaging is to parents. And one of the most effective ways that I used to use all the time to message parents was announcements, because it was quick, it went right to their inbox, and they were able to see that immediately. However, what we noticed when we were looking at this data was that the actions that we were asking them to do via an announcement, they were important, but we didn't reach our peak opening rate until about 4 days after that announcement was sent. So that then, we could have passed a deadline. They could have gotten this information a little bit later than we wanted. And that's what makes the SMS feature important to us now, is that we're able to give parents that information immediately. It's right there at their fingertips on their phone, where we all live now, no matter what generation you are. And then they're able to act on it with more urgency than if they were opening up their email 4 days after the announcement sent. And that's you'll see that later on when Brooke shows the data and some of the testing that we did with the beta messaging, where it made a difference in our funnel performance this year.
Yep. And just to clarify it for some of the new folks, announcement is campus ESP terminology for like a dedicated email. So really what we found was that the email opens may happen 3 or 4 days after the send, but the text message opens are happening immediately. How about you, Joe, from the student success retention side?
So as we think about the texting and our SMS with our families, a lot of what we tend to use our portal for as it relates to current families, because that's the area that I work most regularly with in the portal, is open lines of communication. And like it's especially during the pandemic been really vital as we think about the communication that we've had to share and how it changes so quickly. And that's what I think is important about text messaging. It does allow you to be able to kind of get out that information quick and like very succinct, as opposed to like a lengthy email, or letting people know that an email was sent if there is something that was really important or really that changed from something that they've previously gotten the information on. So for us, I think it's, at least from my side of it, is thinking about how can we make sure our families are up to date with things that are happening, and how can you use it at the times when they need it the most, right? So partnering with our Center for Student Success, how do we make sure that we have the right information that we're giving to the families at the time they need it, right? Like it's always about, to me, it's not about over inundating anybody with information, but giving them the information when they actually need it. So how can we create partnerships to create the posts or the announcements, or now SMS, to figure out what do we need to tell people when we need to know it? And that's where I think the platform itself and SMS now are kind of taking it to that next level for us, as at least as a campus.
Cool. Thanks. So we wanted to share some of the early results from both of these institutions. Just to call out, both Salisbury University and University of the Pacific launched their SMS module like about 7 weeks ago. So these are very, very early results. The first step with SMS is that all parents and users for any SMS platform need to opt in and provide consent to receive SMS from messages from a platform. So I would say, at least I was pleasantly surprised by the opt-in rate from parents right off the bat, especially considering that the summer is the parent engagement high season. And for both institutions, like parents of incoming first-year families are like just starting to trickle in. And then this is the engagement rate we're seeing even before that first-year family engagement happens. But across the board, there's been a high opt-in rate, a high level of parent conversations. We'll cover this later in the demo, but parents are able to reply to SMS campaigns. We're able to host two-way conversation on platforms. We've certainly gotten some parent questions and comments coming in, and a high volume of text messages sent. Mary Beth referenced this a little bit earlier, but we also included that deposits are up 7.4% at University of the Pacific compared to last year, which is very exciting. Of course, we cannot attribute this result entirely to campus ESP, but Mary Beth, can you share a little bit more about what you've done with campus?
Brooke, we launched beta testing for SMS right about the time that we were pushing people to make their decision and deposit by May 1. So I was able to leverage the text messaging to those parents who had opted in and had not committed yet, and let them know that the deadline was May 1. They only had like 3 days left to commit, which was great because we did see a jump in our deposits. Of course, that's typical. People do wait till right about the deadline to deposit, but I do still feel strongly that that little extra nudge helped. Then later on in May, about May 23rd, because we extended our deadline, of course, I scheduled a text message to go out to parents of admitted students who had opted in and let them know that they still had time to deposit by June 1. So I gave them another deadline of June 1st, and we are still seeing a steady increase in our deposits. So I have to attribute some of that. Of course, there's a lot of teamwork and behind the scenes things going on, but I do know that from my experience at my previous institution and here, that contacting the parents typically results in the biggest jump and in the best results.
Yep. This is a little bit of a sneak preview at what's coming on a later slide, but we do know from parents that the number one topic they'd like to receive text message campaigns about is deadline reminders of any type. So we're certainly seeing that in play here. And question for Joe. So Salisbury has a very high number of parent opt-ins. I don't remember the exact number, but we sent one email to parents encouraging them to opt in. And I remember like within an hour and a half, something like 300 parents had opted in immediately after receiving that email. This might be a tough question for you, Joe, but why do you think you are, well, let me ask this a little bit differently. We know that you do a really good job with your parent engagement strategy. You have like very high frequency of parent communication, and then we see really strong engagement results following that. Can you maybe share a bit more about like what type of content you are creating for parents and how you think that is increasing their appetite for more communication from your university?
Sure. So, well, I did also want to mention that for those of you who are like the current customers, but the new customers, my favorite thing is my monthly like metrics that I get that kind of give me the data each month, that I also make my my success manager pull it quarterly for me for my reporting. But I love, for example, our email open rate is like 61% for our families, which, I mean, I don't know what Mary Beth's is, but to me, 61% always feels like such a high number in terms of email open rates. We send a lot of emails, so like I expected generally that would be lower because we get inundated with those types of things. But what we've found is that some of the content for us that gets the most likes is always related to financial aid. Anything that we tell them about FAFSA or anything we tell them about awards or any of their financial aid information, we just get tons of clicks on all of that, which I also love that the system does kind of tell us these things, because then that tells us that that's the kind of content that they want. So then we try and work with our financial aid office to build further content out that relates to that. I mean, we generally send at least one COVID email a week still sometimes. And like that, I mean, generally is just updates on kind of where we're at and, you know, reminding them to protect the flock as we're the seagulls. So I think there is different pieces there. And, you know, and we do get our fair share of hate mail from any of those types of emails that we get back to us. But I think it just shows that we have a very passionate like group of parents, like they care deeply about what their students are doing. And I think that these ways, then the ways that they're able to engage has been great, because many schools probably have these, but we have like an unofficial parent Facebook page, which has a lot of misinformation that gets shared on it. So we try and use our portal to kind of provide the accurate information with families. And then it's funny, we'll send an email about something and then you'll see someone screenshot it and post it on that parent page, right? So like, even though we can't track that in here, I can see it, the portal being used in other ways that I think then other people are like, wait, how did you get that? Like, why didn't I get that email? And then they'll say, well, did you sign up for the family portal? So like, I think even parents kind of tend to do it for themselves and help each other kind of get the information in certain ways as well. So for us, I think generally our parents are very passionate and they care a lot, much like Mary Beth said, like if you need something done, you talk to the parents, generally it happens. But building some of that content as it relates to financial aid has been most effective for our engagement.
Awesome. Maybe it's a good time to ask Mel, is there any action in the chat? Any questions?
Nothing quite yet, but if anyone wants to give me something to do during this call, then they can definitely take some notes.
Cool. So when Joe and Mary Beth and I met last week to plan for this webinar, one of the two of you had a great idea to poll parents and ask them, what would you like to receive content about via SMS? I mean, in general, we have a lot of research out there on what parents like to receive information about, but we know that the preferences for text message may be a little bit different. So we sent out a survey 2 days ago. As of yesterday, we had 142 parents respond to this. We sent out the survey over text message, so the parents have opted in, and we asked them, which of the following content areas would you like to receive updates on via text message? And the top 3 preferences from families are deadline reminders, as we mentioned earlier, tuition and billing updates, and housing and dining information. And this really matches our other research on what type of information parents like to receive the most. Joe, since you talked about COVID updates just a moment ago, COVID updates was also on this list, and it was not a very popular option. So maybe
no one wants to talk about that anymore.
Yeah, our parents, they need the information, but they don't want to tell you that they want the information. So from both of your institutions, we've seen examples. You guys so far have used SMS for deposits, submitting high school transcripts, admitted student next steps, and family weekend registration. Just kind of want to ask, like, open-ended, what other SMS campaigns are you planning coming up this summer?
We'll do one. I'm sure I'll do one more push for deposits again. There'll be one for, now that I see this data or these poll results, there'll be one for housing and dining, and probably a tuition and billing reminder too. Those are all things that we're working on right now in a larger working group to communicate to our incoming students. So it'd be helpful to also push that out to parents. It's on the portal too. Of course, we do we have our blog posts, and then it's on our calendar, but a text message reminder, I think, will be an additional layer that will help us get the word out.
Similar to Mary Beth, we'll do some things about billing deadlines, and our housing opens on July 15th. So once we know that that's kind of good to go, we'll probably do some things for that. The other thing I've been thinking about is, like I said, we're rolling out FERPA. How can we use that to let families know that they can go in and fill out the FERPA form to get permission to see the tiles in the platform and things like that. Like, if there are ways to navigate that and figure out, but that's all going to be dependent on when it's up and ready to go. So things we're thinking about, but nothing necessarily too concrete other than some deadlines for at least the summertime.
Yep, that's a great point. I know not every institution uses the campus ESP FERPA management module. And just quick overview, that's where parents can request access to student academic and financial records. If students complete the digital FERPA waiver, then parents get notifications in campus ESP. They get access to a data dashboard, and they get notified whenever the data updates. So if there's anyone on this call who is using the campus ESP FERPA management module, SMS would be a fantastic way to let parents know when it's time to send a FERPA request to their student, to let them know when grades are coming out, or when bills are coming out, or when holds may be put on students' accounts so they can check out the data. And that's where the student success piece really comes in. All right, last slide on results from our little survey, and then we'll switch gears to the demo. We also asked parents, how often would you like to receive text message communication? And I was a little bit surprised to see that this number almost exactly matched the number from an earlier slide, if you recall, where 85% of parents say they'd like to receive communication weekly. And that could be any communication from your institution, right? That could be email, that could be a new content in the portal. But what these parents are telling us is that around 85% would also like to receive text message communication, at least weekly or anytime there's an important update. Mary Beth or Joe, whoever wants to take it, are you surprised by these results?
I'm not surprised. It makes sense. I'm a little, I take that back. I'm a little surprised by prospective parents that they still want, their student hasn't made a commitment yet. Maybe they've committed, and I think that would be a good thing to think about when you're messaging this group of prospective parents. If they're opting into SMS and they're telling you that they want to receive something weekly, a text message weekly from you, then I would try to match that up to their student and really work on that matching student to make sure that they apply and move through your enrollment pipeline, because it seems like a really good indicator of parent interest. And in my opinion, as I've said on other webinars, not just with you, but also with RNL back in the day, was that it's more effective and easier to recruit a parent than it is to recruit a student. And that just totally validates my opinion.
As it relates to the current families, I'm not surprised either. I think as we think about the generation of student that we're bringing in and working with, I think families are just way more a part of everything that's happening, especially given the pandemic and everything. Like their families are very active in what's going on. And it's one of those things where, like, I don't know, I guess if I had a kid, maybe I would be like, I want to know what's going on, where they're at, like they're away from home for the first time, maybe as a freshman, like they just want to know what's happening. And I think if it's our job to communicate that, I think that this is one way we know that they would like to be communicated with at least weekly, to kind of show that they're a part of the community, because they are just as much a part of our community as our students are, just in a little bit different ways because they're not living here on campus with us. So but I think it's exciting that they want to be communicated with. But then, as I was saying to you, Brooke, earlier, it's funny, they want to be communicated with, but then they're like, stop texting me, right? So, it could go either way sometimes.
Just to kind of echo on that, not only am I a user of Campus ESP for my institution, but I'm also in as a parent at another institution. And I happen to meet the one of or two of the people that do the Campus ESP at that institution where my older son goes. And I told them that I was thankful that they had picked up Campus ESP, because that's the only way that I would know what's going on his campus, because he doesn't tell me. And so now I know when he's out, like when the semester's done, I know when his midterms are, I know, I might have an idea of why he's not responding to my text messages for reasons other than I'm mom and I'm annoying. So I have had the opportunity to see it from both ends now. And it's a very, very powerful tool for getting information out to current parent, your current student parent population too.
That's awesome. Maybe you can set up a little workshop for them on how to push out as much content as you push out too. So we're going to switch gears here, and I'll actually take you through a demo of what functionality is included in our new Campus ESP SMS module. The main components, just to set the scene, are opt-in management and how we have parents opt in and keep track of that data, show what it looks like to push out and to create and push out an SMS campaign, and then what it looks like to have two-way conversation with families who reply to the campaigns. So switching gears here, it really all starts with the opt-in process. As I mentioned earlier, this is like not within Campus ESP control or any vendor's control. It is like text message law from the phone carriers that users must opt in to receive text messages. So we make that really easy with all the different communication channels in Campus ESP. As part of implementation, we'll set up a series of campaigns to go out to parents, encouraging them to opt in. There's special targeting criteria so that once a parent does opt in, they're taken off the list. We do not continue to barrage them with reminders to opt in. For those of you who are familiar with Campus ESP and know the automated newsletter, we also set up a special call to action at the top of the newsletter that just stays up there permanently until a parent opts in, again, encouraging that action. And of course, there's also portal content, campaigns. There are plenty of ways to get the word out. So once a parent does opt in or does click on the call to action, we set up a new screen that makes it easy for parents to opt in. You can also add this opt-in functionality to things like your onboarding form or to event forms. Really, anytime you put a form in front of parents, we would recommend you add the opt-in checkbox, at least once you're going through the initial implementation phase. But if you really want to just do for those of you who use Campus ESP, there are a lot of questions on the onboarding form. So if you're looking for just a simplified call to action to get parents to opt in, this is a page we set up. There's a bit of phone number. Let's see if I can get this animation to work. We have phone number verification to make sure parents actually put in a valid phone number and that we're going to be opting them in correctly. So that's kind of like the parent facing side. Once they do check the box and save the button, they get a text message letting them know that they have opted in to receive text messages. But now I'm going to switch gears and show you what it looks like on the admin side. So what we've done here is we've really added 2 new buttons or 2 new screens to the content area of Campus ESP. There's SMS campaigns and then SMS conversations, which I'll show you in a moment. So at the top of the page, you'll see your credit information. And it's as part of our pricing model for SMS, we grant schools a fixed number of credits based on FTE. Before this raises any concern, you should know, like, this should be, we will grant you more than enough credits, and 1 credit represents 1 text message, but our goal is to give schools as many credits as they need. But since it costs money to send and receive every single text message, we need to build in some parameters around usage. But you'll see your credits, you'll see your balance, your remaining balance, and you'll get data about how many parents have opted in and who's been opted in. And then now we're going to build a campaign. So for those of you who have used Campus ESP before, you'll see that this is very, very similar to the announcement builder tool. So let's go with an orientation use case, since I know that's probably top of mind for many of you on this call. So you name your campaign. This is mostly for tracking purposes. You can schedule when, date and time that you'd like your campaign to be delivered, but there's also the option to send immediately for more urgent messages. And then we have a new concept that we introduced called the subscriber list. And to explain this for a moment, this is the list of administrators that will be notified when there's a new text message waiting for them to review. And we know that there are going to be different departments sharing SMS usage, and we want to make it easy for teams to manage the workflow. So both Salisbury and Pacific are great examples of this, where Joe is focused on the student affairs side, but has an enrollment counterpart. Mary Beth's focused on the enrollment side, but has a student affairs counterpart. And what we want to do to support these schools is that if it's, you know, a message about Admitted Students Day, for instance, we can set it up so that only Mary Beth gets replies, gets emails about parent replies, and is prompted to have conversations with parents. And if it's a message about Family Weekend, only Joe gets the notification about a parent reply and manages the conversation with families. So you could you get very creative about setting up your subscriber lists. And then very similar to other Campus ESP functionality, we have the ability to target messages based off of communities or different types of user attributes. So for instance, we could do something like, you could target a message to first-year families. A lot of communities in my demo environment. You could target a message to first-year families and first-generation families, or you could target a message. In this case, I'm going to do this test community that I set up for this portal. And what's really neat is that as you start to build out your community list, you'll see that you'll get campaign estimates to let you know how many messages you're sending. So the reason credits are important is that if you exceed the character limit, if you send a really long text message, it may deliver as 2 text messages or 3 text messages to the end user. So we're letting you know that, you know, right now there's no text in here. So this is a short message. So you'd send 3 messages and you'd spend 3 credits. But if the message got really long, you might send it to 3 parents, but send 6 credits. And we want to make it easy for you to manage your credit usage. And beyond the credit usage, also just keep the messages short and succinct for parents, which is how they like to receive text messages. So let's do a little orientation example. Register for orientation today. So you'll see this is a long message, so we're using many credits, but let me shorten this up. One other new piece of functionality, which was actually just rolled out in our release about 2 hours ago. So this is new to Mary Beth and Joe. It'd be new to Mel, and really the whole Campus ESP team too, is mail merge functionality. So what this means is that you can input custom fields into your text message. So things like student name or parent name or funnel stage or student major, really whatever data you are importing into Campus ESP as part of the user profile, we could now, as of like 2 hours ago, roll into text messages too. And then really the last step of building a campaign, and this is also a little bit different than announcements and our email engagement, is the autoresponder. And this is kind of like an away message. That's how you can think about it. And we recommend using this if your team is unavailable for real-time support. So you could say something here like, sorry, we're not monitoring this inbox right now. Please reach out to support for additional assistance. And once we trigger an auto response, anytime a parent replies to a campaign, they'll receive this message right away, so they're not awaiting a response from you. So I'm going to go ahead and send this campaign right now. I have enlisted Mary Beth and Joe for support. I opted them in this portal. So the two of them should have just received the message. And can you go ahead and reply to the message so we can show the conversation screen? Cool. Joe, this is Joe's reply. So Joe wrote, when is orientation? At some point in the last 60 seconds. And then here's where you can see how the auto reply or the auto responder comes into play, where immediately we let Joe know. But you can also manage conversations directly from this screen. And one of the reasons we built this screen is like we got feedback from customers that they were having text conversations with their parents on their own personal cell phone, and that schools wanted to make it easier to manage the workflow in the platform, to be able to better track communication with families so they can report on it rather than keeping it on their private devices. So this should make it much easier to handle parent communication as like the rest of your functionality in Campus ESP.
Hey, Brooke, I have a quick question. So, or maybe just clarification for people on the call. You don't have to reach out to support at Campus ESP. You can make your own personal out of office reply to them because you're not available to monitor the chat 24/7, even though some of your families might expect it, but you can send them at least to an inbox or something like that where someone could respond maybe quicker than if it was a text message type thing.
Yep. That.
And it also would alert you to your own inbox that you've gotten a text message response, right?
Yep. So we have right now it's four times a day we alert administrators in Campus at ESP about how many text message replies have come in, and direct them back to the platform so that they can manage the responses.
Could you change that frequency? Like, could I get more alerts if I'm wanting to really monitor it?
Yep, it's something that we're talking about adding to the roadmap for the summer. We know some schools want less alerts than that, and plenty of schools would like to have more alerts than that. So we're thinking about ways to make it easier for customers to customize how often they want to get notified from Campus ESP. Cool. Not right now, but probably coming soon. I think
I was just going to interrupt here with a question that we got that I think is probably a good place for it. We had two questions, actually. One, I think Mary Beth might have even seen, because it sounds like some of the things that she was asking was responding to it. And it's just about the volume of the responses that people would be getting and how the departments would manage that workload. And I think the things that Mary Beth just kind of clarified were good. So Christine, I know that was your question. If there's more clarification that you went on there, just respond again and we can dig deeper into it. But there's another question that's asking about the administrative access to this area. So the question is anybody who has administrative access at the university have the ability to view these conversations when they log in, or they save to, particular permissions or different administrative levels.
Yep. So there are different administrative levels within Campus ESP. For instance, there's a level called content admin, where users can only submit content to the portal, but not see all the user data on the back end. There's another level called FERPA admin, where administrators across campus can see FERPA waivers, but not this screen here. If you're asking about platform access, which is really like the full platform access, these SMS screens would be included. However, I'll also say, this is a brand new feature. We literally rolled it out 2 weeks ago. I'm the person who works on enhancements to this feature and getting them on the roadmap. So if it came up from several customers about like sensitivity to conversations and wanting to lock down the screen, that would be something we could look into. But based off of the conversations I've seen so far, even outside Salisbury and Pacific, the conversations have been nothing too like crazy or personal. A lot of questions about how to access financial aid information and questions about like how to submit a form. So hopefully that answered the question. Any other questions come in while we paused here?
No, I think you can keep on rolling, Brooke.
Okay. And that's kind of, that's kind of it for the demo. I believe we have just a couple slides to close out on here, and then we'll pause for more questions. We did want to spend a moment just talking about best practices that have been learned from Salisbury and Pacific, but from other institutions in the beta group as well. I'll just roll through this really quickly. We know that the summertime is the peak of parent engagement for the entire year, especially for incoming first-year families, but also for all families of second, third, and fourth-year students. We also see, especially like towards the end of the summer, around return to campus and around enrollment time, a big increase in parent engagement, which just means the summer is a great time to start collecting parent opt-ins and set yourself up to have a successful SMS program. As with all content in Campus ESP, definitely recommend using communities to make the content very personalized. I include screenshots from Salisbury and Pacific here, and you can see that Joe's campaign here is just going to the funnel stage of deposited families, and Mary Beth's campaign here is just going to the funnel stage of admitted families. And the more personalized you can get with the content, the better engagement results you'll have on it. Definitely brief messages linking out to important information. I've seen many customers send tremendous emails with a lot of COVID information that requires a lot of scrolling. Nobody's going to read that over text message. So it's better to keep the message kind of like tweet length, we like to say, and link out. The autoresponder, we chatted about it a little bit. It's a good way to set parent expectations about reply times. And, you don't want to set the expectations that you're available to respond to parents all the time if you're not. And then lastly, consistency. I mean, parents have told us they want weekly communication from your institution. Parents who have already opted into SMS and are receptive to SMS have told us that they want to receive text message communication weekly. So parents are really inviting you to be consistent and communicate with them often. Mary Beth or Joe, do you have anything to add here based off of your use cases on campus?
Yes, I do. Actually, the first text that I sent, the one that you have as a confirmation, I realized after I sent it that I didn't introduce to the recipient who was sending this text. So I should have. What I would also include as a best practice is to send one out, or at least include in your message, hello, this is University of the Pacific, or wherever you're at. Just a reminder that your, such and such is due, or you're working on this or whatever. that type of thing. And I totally forgot to do that the first one I sent. The second one I remembered, but the first one, I think it's important to do some type of introduction.
Yep, and I don't know if this is what you're thinking about, but in the admin screen, Campus ESP will show you the name of which user has replied, which is helpful in case you have different folks on campus. Like if you send one message, Mary Beth, and someone else from your team sends a different message, you'll get the names, but parents don't see those names. So it's a good point.
Like I see Joe did that on his greetings from Salisbury. I should have done that too. So I will confess that I didn't, and that is actually a good practice too. And then now that I'm seeing like they want the consistency and everything too, then another layer to build out in your communication plan is when will you send a text, and pull the trigger on that or schedule it out, and what types of information will you build those texts around.
Yep.
I just wanted to mention, I did use the auto response feature because I know that's something that we just talked a little bit about. And with the actual text message that's on the screen there, just kind of saying, because I'm not really the person who can really answer all the questions about the high school transcript. I just was, we were using it as like a practice text message kind of thing to use. And I just did a simple like questions regarding the transcripts, please call the admissions phone number. And then I did actually have some people who did just text back and like ask questions, and they said they weren't able to get in touch with that phone number. Like no one answered when they called. And I was like, okay, well then I gave them their email address and like gave them the address where they could send it, and they were kind of good. The one thing that we learned and that we talked about this a little bit in our prep meeting is that on the text feature, and I equate this the same way, like when I call Comcast, for example, when I'm done with their chat feature, I just hang up or exit out of the box. It seems to be a very similar thing that families will do. Like they'll text back for their question, and then I like say, here's your answer, and they just will disregard you and not like say thank you or anything like that, right? Like I just equate it to that same idea of like, I'm done with this, so I'm exiting out of the box. So that's just something I would say, keep in mind as you move into text messaging, that people were likely just gonna kind of stop engaging when they're done engaging with it. So it's great that you can though talk to them instantly as opposed to having to fill out a whole email or anything like that. So that's just one of the things I've learned so far in this little bit of practice we've been doing with it.
Yep.
Joe, you just made me think of something too when you said the deal about the transcripts and nobody was answering the phone. I know that I hear that complaint. It doesn't matter where you're at, you're going to hear that complaint, right? So, but I'm also thinking like one thing I didn't consider before is that if I do have them contact, if it does go to another unit on campus, I need to remind myself to give that unit a heads up. Like, hey, I just sent 500 text messages about transcripts. You might see an influx in calls or emails. So be prepared.
Joe, you were talking about the immediacy of text message over email, and one use case I saw from a different institution, so it's not in here, but this really warmed our hearts, was we had a parent text in it was like 9 p.m., 9:30 p.m. and just say, I'm worried about my student, who should I contact? And they had just opted in to receive the text messages, and then they received an opt-in confirmation text message, and that's what they replied to, just saying, I'm worried, who should I reach out to? And they were able to have a whole conversation with our contact at this institution, maybe like 15 messages back and forth between 9 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. I know that's not at the time many folks want to be engaging with families, but it was like a pretty serious issue about a family not being able to get a hold of a student, and the institution needed to get Res Life involved. And the parent was like very, very grateful. The parent did say, thank you for texting me and thank you for helping me resolve this. I know you haven't gotten that as much, Joe, but it's really neat to be able to see like the immediacy of resolving issues for families. And it seems like families are just more comfortable saying, hi, can you help, over text message than they would be over email. Okay, I'm gonna get through just like one more slide, and then I see there's some other questions. So I stop the screen share, make everyone's faces big, and we can go through other questions. Last point is just about implementation. For those of you who are current customers, you know that the Campus ESP implementation overall is typically around 3 weeks. It's very fast, but the SMS implementation could happen in a week or less. It's really just like flipping a couple switches in the portal and setting some technical pieces up on the back end. I could say with Pacific, we had an unbelievably fast implementation. The very same day that the functionality was released into production, which in technical terms means the day our IT team essentially delivered it and said, SMS exists now, we had Pacific live like 4 hours after that, and parents were opting in and sending text messages. So all this to say, there's a lot of like good opportunities with timing this summer, as we've discussed. And if you want to move forward with SMS, like we get you set up in the next couple of weeks or so. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. That was it for the little campus ESP pitch. Let's see what other questions have come in. I see Amanda asked about links. It says, what are the best practices when it comes to using links in messages? We've been told that we'll be blacklisted by carriers for doing so because it's seen as spam. That's a good question. I know that like phone carriers have a lot of control in the SMS campaign space, and really what they're trying to do is keep SMS clean as a channel and keep it not spammy, which it really is not a spammy channel, which makes it so great for getting messages across. I could tell you that so two things. When we implement SMS, we work with a vendor called Twilio, and as part of our setup, we tell Twilio that we will be using links in the implementation, which kind of like triggers a heads up. So we register directly with the phone carriers, and we talk about like, this is Salisbury University. These are the kind of messages they're going to be sending. We check a box that say they are going to be sending links. And then we go through a whole vetting process where they confirm like the EIN and the identity of Salisbury and say like, yep, this is not spammy, this is legit. So we should be able to get ahead of any issues with links by registering directly with the phone carriers. We also sent out links this week when Mary Beth and Joe both polled parents about their interests. We linked out to a form, got a bunch of parent replies. We had no problem with that. And then the last point about links is that we are rolling out an enhancement with links this summer, probably within the next month, where we will be able to do short links so that we don't take up too much character limit in SMS, since we know that's a concern, keeping the messages short. And with the short links, we'll also provide link tracking so that we could track clicks, do click reporting on SMS campaigns too. So with the additional work we're doing around links, we're like really trying to protect against any issues with hyperlinks because we know they're important. So in short, we haven't had issues so far, and I wouldn't expect to have any.
There's a question in Christine's reply here to Brooke, basically asking if once there is a response from a parent, like in the two-way conversation, is there a way to assign that conversation to a staff member at the university so the appropriate person is taking care of that reply?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We don't really have that right now, and we don't have the ability to assign a conversation. But with the ability to assign a subscriber to the SMS campaign, there's probably a workaround there. We could talk more about this offline and talk more about like what your use cases are and try to like come up with what that workaround looks like. But for the most part, if you just set the subscriber to the campaign, you could probably get to the point where one individual is like more or less assigned to the conversations related to the campaign. And again, I'll say what I said earlier, which is we know there will be more product enhancements. We already got a ton of requests from the beta group, and we've rolled out a ton of enhancements over the last couple months. We know there will be more once more schools are using it. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of this stuff, gets added to the roadmap over the next like 5 months or so. Let's see. Anything else? Mary Beth or Joe, any other thoughts related to SMS that haven't been covered already?
I would say it's definitely a good tool to use if you're using it right now to text students, reminders and those types of things, and think of how effectively it works to that group. Just imagine adding in texting parents to your toolbox or your arsenal of recruiting your next fall class, especially if you know it works. If you're already a Campus ESP user and you're using it to send announcements and all and show deadlines and everything and do Zoom webinars and those types of things, then I can see as you're able to grow your opt-in users that the importance of this text messaging would be important.
The only thing that I would add is kind of something I've already talked a little bit about, is just like being strategic about what information you're giving at what times, right? And not, using all of the different tools in different ways and not just saying the same thing on all of the different tools that are in the box, right? Like, so don't have the same message via text, a post, and an announcement. Like that might be over communicating one thing and trying to use the right channel for the right information at the right time. So I think it's just about kind of planning it out and not just trying to wing it, I think is the most important thing that I've learned with kind of doing all of this.
Yep. Yeah, I would say that is the perfect place to end on, Joe, but we do have one more question from Christine. So the question is whether the SMS feature is based on the Campus ESP based platform or whether it can be implemented independently. Christine, right now, it cannot be implemented independently. SMS would be an add-on to either the family communication module, which is for current families, or the student enrollment module for prospective families. So, sorry. Well, I know we're at the top of the hour. I put up Joe and especially Mary Beth's information on here again for one last plug for Mary Beth's LinkedIn creator content coming up this summer. But if anyone has questions about how SMS works in Campus ESP, you can definitely reach out to me. My email address is here. It's just brooke@campusesp.com. And as we wrap up, I just want to give a major thanks to Joe and Mary Beth for being early adopters, for spending time with us in the beta group and spending time on the webinar, and just being super willing to play with us and test things out and see what works. So thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Brooke.
And thanks to everyone else who joined the webinar. We will wrap up, send out the deck, we'll send out the recording, and hope everyone has a great rest of the day.
All right. Thank you.